an original podcast from podlatino.com.
You walk out of a subway station, step onto the sidewalk, and realize you're not quite sure which direction you need to go. Your phone is already in your hand, the screen lit up, your earbuds in. You pick a street that looks short on the map. Halfway down it, there are fewer people than you expected. The lighting isn't great, and there's someone standing on the corner who, without doing anything in particular, makes you feel slightly uneasy. Nothing dangerous happened. Nothing happened at all. But that small signal was there, and it went completely unnoticed because your attention was somewhere else. That's not a dramatic situation. That's an ordinary Tuesday. And it raises a question worth thinking about. How do you move through a city more safely, without turning every trip outside into a constant state of high alert? Paranoia isn't useful. It isn't useful because it drains you, distorts reality, and makes you see threats where there aren't any. Someone who walks down the street eyeing everyone with suspicion, calculating risk at every step, making decisions from a place of fear, isn't safer. They're just more exhausted. And that constant tension becomes its own problem, because it clouds your judgment and makes it harder to recognize when something actually deserves attention and when it doesn't. But the other extreme doesn't work either. Moving through the world completely checked out, earbuds cranked all the way up, eyes locked on your phone, head down in busy places, unaware of your surroundings, has a cost too. Not because the world is inherently hostile, but because your ability to respond shrinks when your attention is fully turned inward. And when something does require a quick decision, having less information about what's around you leaves you with fewer options. Between those two extremes, there's something far more useful: calm awareness. It's not a special technique. It doesn't require training. It's simply the habit of looking up at the right moments, noticing what's going on around you, and moving forward with a little more information than you had before. It doesn't mean suspecting anyone. It means being present. The moments that most deserve that kind of attention are pretty predictable. Building entrances and exits, transit stations, ATMs, unfamiliar intersections, late-night waits, platforms, hallways. These are transition points, and they're worth putting the phone away for a second, pulling out an earbud, or just looking around before you move on. Not as some anxious security ritual, just as a way of entering each new space with your eyes open. Phone use deserves its own consideration. The point isn't to stop using it, it's to use it with some awareness. On a quiet, familiar street, checking messages while you walk is no big deal. But in a busy station, an unfamiliar neighborhood, a poorly lit area, or somewhere with a lot of foot traffic, being absorbed in your screen reduces your sense of what's happening around you and can also make a valuable object more visible to the wrong people. Keeping your phone accessible doesn't mean keeping it on display at all times. Slipping it into an interior pocket, a closed bag, or simply not holding it out when there's no real need to, are small choices that reduce exposure without complicating anything. The same logic applies to earbuds. Listening to music or podcasts while walking around the city is completely normal and there's nothing wrong with it. But on unfamiliar streets, in areas with few people around, in transit stations or at busy intersections, lowering the volume or taking one earbud out brings back environmental information that might actually matter. Unexpected sounds, footsteps nearby, voices, vehicles. It's not about listening with anxiety, it's about keeping one channel open to what's happening outside your head. Routes are also a form of security. Taking the shortest path makes sense when the context allows for it. But when it's late, when you don't know the area well, when there's less light or fewer people than expected, choosing a more populated, better-lit route closer to open businesses might be the smarter call even if it adds a few minutes. You don't need to justify that choice to anyone. If a street feels off, changing course is simply a reasonable decision. Along those same lines, places with staff, good lighting, and visible activity can serve as anchor points at any moment. An open pharmacy, a gas station, a hotel lobby, a supermarket, a bank branch, a shopping center, a building with visible security. If something feels wrong, if you lose your bearings, if you need to wait somewhere, and the wait starts to feel uncomfortable, stepping into one of those places buys you time, context, and the chance to ask for help from someone with a clear role. You don't need an actual emergency to use that option. Asking for help is also a skill, and it works better when you choose wisely who to approach. A store employee, someone at a service window, security personnel, a convenience store with people inside. Approaching someone in a setting where that person clearly belongs, there reduces uncertainty on both sides and makes a useful response much more likely. There's a physical dimension to all of this that often gets overlooked. Walking with direction, head up, moving with purpose, sends a signal to the environment around you. It's not an aggressive posture or an exaggerated one. It's simply the difference between moving like someone who knows where they're going and moving like someone who has no idea where they are. That difference, subtle as it seems, can influence how a space and the people in it respond. When someone invades your personal space, pushes an interaction in an uncomfortable direction, or creates a sense of pressure, you don't owe them a response or an explanation. Moving toward a more crowded area, stepping into a business, getting closer to an identifiable staff member, or simply crossing to the other side of the street are all completely valid responses. Not engaging with every interaction on the street isn't rude. It's judgment. The same logic applies to conflict. Avoiding a pointless argument, stepping back from a situation that's escalating, not responding to a provocation out of pride when nothing productive can come from it. Letting someone pass, ignoring a jab, choosing not to be right in that moment. Those decisions don't weaken anyone. They preserve your options. Preparation before you leave also makes a real difference. Having enough battery on your phone seems obvious, but it genuinely matters when something unexpected comes up. Keeping important contacts saved, knowing how to get home from different points in the city, carrying an alternative form of payment, letting someone know what time you expect to arrive, sharing your location when the situation calls for it. These are simple habits that cost nothing and multiply your available options when things don't go as planned. Intuition deserves a place in all of this. That uneasy feeling that shows up without a fully clear reason is sometimes just noise, but sometimes it's picking up on something real that hasn't quite reached conscious awareness yet. It's not worth dismissing, but it's also not worth acting on alone. The useful move is to combine it with concrete observation. What's actually happening in this environment that's generating that feeling? Is there not enough people around? Did someone move in a way that seemed off? Is the lighting poor? Intuition points, observation informs, and together they make for a much more grounded decision. One last thing, taking care of yourself doesn't mean blaming yourself if something goes wrong. Difficult situations aren't always avoidable, and holding someone responsible for not having done something differently doesn't help anyone. What does make sense is increasing the likelihood of making better decisions while there's still room to make them. And that room exists, almost always, before things get complicated. Moving through a city safely doesn't require living in a state of alert or imagining a threat on every block. It requires looking up at the right moments, making a few simple choices before problems arise, and staying present enough to notice when something deserves a response. That's not fear. That's not paranoia. It's just keeping your eyes open while you live your life normally. And most of the time, that's exactly enough.